now.
What presence of mind do I need to be in? They're like, and be consumed. Oh, dude, it's so cool. So we've been off we were off last week, obviously, because I was and we're live now, by the way, just so everyone knows.
Hey,
we were off
Hello.
last week because I was on vacation. So we're like, you know what? Lately, like it feels like Ryan, since June when we had our big company conference, that we've been like either not live because of work, or also not live because of work, and then not live again because of work, or then maybe a vacation someplace in there too.
I mean, in there was I'm sure I'm now. I had made it so long through the pandemic without getting COVID, and then in that, what was it? We had a conference. I came down with COVID,
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, man.
God, it was ruthless.
Rough.
Like the 2 or 3 weeks after this conference, like a chunk of us came home with it, and we're just all like, you know what? We're just gonna call a mulligan for like 3 weeks, and just like we'll be back later.
I had for the most part avoided COVID until I went to Star Wars Celebration. I was literally hanging out with somebody that got COVID. We shared nachos at Disneyland together, and I avoided it.
Oh my
Went to
gosh.
Florida the next week, avoided it. And then I went to some random get together. I was masked up and everything, and I got COVID then.
Oh,
Oh,
damn it.
that's how it goes. That's
Yeah.
how it goes. I firmly believe that, and I mean, again, welcome to the COVID chat. I will say that, we were, we were dealing with conferences, we were going to work, but I feel like, Jeff, I was able to get through all of it, but it was the plane ride home that caught me with COVID. There was a very nice gentleman that sat right next to me, and he wanted to talk to me the entire flight home, and he was so sick. And all I kept thinking is oh man, you're a really nice person, but I really wish that there was a mile of distance between us right now. And then he even got my suitcase down from the overhead, and I was like, oh, darn it.
Here's your suitcase.
So,
I'm like, dude.
Yeah. General politeness caused me 2 weeks of COVID. So,
Oh,
yeah.
That's why you shouldn't be polite.
See,
no, exactly. I should have just been like, hey, and I even did the thing that people do on planes that signal I'm zoning out right now. I had my AirPods in, and I'm sitting there, I'm on my phone doing the Wordle. And no, it was this guy seems like someone I want to talk to. And I have that face though.
that is very true, dude.
I call it down.
I think sometimes the bald guy energy actually helps with because sometimes you can look super nice and friendly, but other times it's really easy when you're bald to kind of have a look that makes people go, I don't know if I want to talk to you. And I play that.
That's true.
I do play that sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't like to do
That's
it
pretty
because
good.
I want to talk to people. But in that case, there are sometimes I've got the big Beats headphones. I put them over the ear because they block out enough sound that I can still hear them, but I can fake it really well that it can be oh, I'm sorry, what? Can I do something for you?
Yeah.
That's a dick.
No.
I know it really is. I'm sorry, but
Oh no, man!
sometimes you just have to do that.
I've talked to every multi-level marketer on a plane. I can't tell you how many products, and I'm sitting there oh gosh, what is it? It's written on my face that I'm just yeah, sit next to me and sell me your thing. The best thing that ever happened though was I was on a plane and a guy came down the aisle, and I was like, oh man, I wonder if this is the guy that's going to sit next to me. And that dude 100% sat next to me, and he was a former NFL linebacker. So it was me, and then he was in 2 seats. And then he talked my ear off about a ton of NFL stuff. And I was it was amazing. He was a former Raider, and he just he barely fit in the size of that plane area. His head was resting on the seat in front. It was pretty crazy.
Wow.
But yeah, so meet someone from the NFL, which was a lot of fun. Also get COVID. So that it goes both ways. It's a spectrum.
It really
Wow.
is. Yes.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it is wild. All right, so shall we? I was gonna actually, Brian, you just reminded me. I wanted to talk to you about beach bodies as soon as we're done with the show, so you can hang tight for a couple minutes. I clearly participated in that. kidding. Anyway, all right. We're going to get into the show tonight, everyone who's watching. We're getting into Andor. It's going to be nowhere near as peppy as we are right now because Andor is not going to be that kind of show. So we're going to get into it here in just a minute.
Oh, well, you can find the humor in anything if you really try.
True. That is actually.
And you have a terrible sense of humor.
What?
Like me.
What? No.
What?
No.
What? Yeah.
All right. Oh, wait. What just happened? What? I don't know what happened. Somehow it got wiped. It was weird. Anyway, awesome, dude. We are back. Kessel Chat. We've been off for a couple of weeks. We had PTO. We had vacations. All kinds of cool stuff. But we decided to come back with a bang, and we have a guest. Do this right direction. That way. Hey, Chris. How you doing, buddy?
Doing great. How are y'all doing?
Fantastic. I am stoked that you could be on with us. We're going to do intros here in a second, but for everyone watching, we really appreciate you being here. I know our schedule's been a little bit strange in the last couple of months, but hey, you know what? That happens. It's life. And we're still back. We've been doing this for, I don't know, what has it been, Ryan? Like a year and a half?
Yeah, it's been a year. So thank you to everybody that watches us live when we do this, but big thanks to everybody that watches us remotely, watch it on your time. Like a lot of people doing the laundry, listening to the podcast. That's always the thing that I'm always catching is like people coming to me saying, "Oh yeah, like I'll listen to you guys when I'm just like doing this or that," and I'm like, "Great, I'm glad that we're filling the time." So if you're with us live, that's always awesome. But if you're listening to us time shifted, that's great.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, dude, this is great. I'm glad we're back. And Chris, it is awesome to have you here, buddy. Chris and I are mutual friends on TikTok. I've been following Chris's podcast for a bit. But Chris, I will turn it over to you to kind of do a quick intro for everybody about all the hotness that you talk about with Star Wars and other geekery on the webs.
A lot of geekery. Hi, I'm Chris. I'm a half of Dark Side Divas, which is a Star Wars podcast that goes through the chronological order of the Star Wars story. We're still in Clone Wars. We've been doing it for 2 years because Clone Wars is a long-ass show. And then Marvelous Divas is our MCU show. We've been flying through that story really quickly because we've been doing a lot of movies recently. Turns out you can record a 3-hour podcast talking about the Avengers. And you can find both of our podcasts on whatever podcast platform you like. We also have a Patreon, patreon.com/Divas podcast. Jeff, you joined us for one of our really cool virtual events that we had there, which was the Obi-Wan watch along. And we also have a cool swag store, which you can find links on if you search for redbubble.com/official divas.
Awesome.
I think I covered everything. If I missed anything, Steph is going to beat me tomorrow morning.
I very much believe that, to be honest. I really do. And I did not get the swag links. I'll grab that from you later. So anyone watching or catching the replay, I will put that in the description.
You're not supposed to say that part out loud because now I'm officially in trouble.
I'm sure she is not watching. She's not in my shed, so I think I'm okay.
She's probably watching Iron Man 3 right now because that's what we're talking about next on Marvelous Divas.
That makes total sense. Yeah, yeah.
Oh wow, that's got to make for a lot of fun to like Iron Man 3. That would be a lot of fun to take apart.
I haven't seen it in over 10 years, so
same.
I have no memory of it other than the fact that I remember walking away. I know this is not a
very
Marvel
Gandalf
show,
there.
But
I have no memory.
But I walked
of
away thinking like that was not the movie I was expecting to see. But I'm looking forward to watching it again.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I feel like it's the Shane Black of it all. Like the best part about Shane Black is when he's Shane Black, and the hardest part about a Shane Black movie is when he is Shane Black. It's a hard balance that you have to strike. It's like James Gunn. When you get too much James Gunn, it can be hard. You get just the right amount, and you get Guardians of the Galaxy, and it's amazing. You get the Suicide Squad, and it is amazing. You just got to get that right balance. And I don't know, with Iron Man 3, it's like, for sure.
Yep.
Good deal.
Awesome. Well, dude, it's super good to have you. We're going to dive in. Ryan, I don't want to put you on the spot too much, but you usually like to walk to our shows and have like some sort of like just immensely existential question that you've been thinking about when it comes to a show or something. And I'm like, I don't want to put you on the spot, but like you're usually the one who has like the good kicker for us to get going. I watched all the trailers and the behind the scenes, so I actually have notes written down tonight, which is awesome because
I too came in with a bunch of notes. I watched a lot of the trailers. I don't really have as much of an existential question as much as, speaking of comic book movies, I'm gonna make a play on kind of a phrase, which is, I don't know if this is the show we deserve, but it's definitely the show I think we might need right now. I'm really interested in hearing from both of you. Like, this character was one that after Rogue One, like, I'm a big Dirty Dozen fan. And I was like, wow, like Rogue One was like the Star Wars Dirty Dozen. Like, it was, you saw these people, they made this ultimate sacrifice, and then their story's over. And it wasn't a Marvel type universe movie where it had threads into all of these other things. It was just a small encapsulated stories with characters that I happen to really like. What I think is really interesting is this was not a show that I was expecting. I was expecting all of this other stuff that Lucasfilm is trying to come out with, but I was not expecting this. And Jeff knows this. I've been big on tell new stories. Tell new stories. Get out. Get away. You don't. There's only to avoid creative bankruptcy. Tell brand new stories. And I'm interested to hear from both of you. Is this story new enough, even though it's set in a time that is heavily now reviewed and evaluated? There's a lot of other shows that are about this. Is this show, though, new enough? Is this something that you both are looking forward to?
I'm going to give it over to you, Chris.
I am very excited about the show. When the first trailer came out, it blew me away. I didn't know what to expect. What does an Andor show even mean? And for me, the most interesting part of the Star Wars saga is that part that hasn't really been explored. I know there have been books and comic books that have come out that have been set between the prequels and the original trilogy, but I've always asked myself, like, what was the rebellion like in the early stage? Are all members of the rebellion like squeaky clean and heroic? And of course the answer is no. And I finally get to see something I've been dreaming about since I was a little kid in the 80s, being a nerd with my Return of the Jedi lunchbox. But the fact that we have Cassian Andor as the vehicle for that story is mind-blowing, because I really loved him in Rogue One. I was sad. That whole cast captivated me so much that when they died, it was a bigger blow to me than a lot of character deaths in Star Wars. And the fact that they're going back now, and so classic Star Wars, they're going to go back and tell more story now that part of the story is over. But I'm just so excited about it. I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see what political intrigue, spy thriller Star Wars is going to be like.
Yeah, I am totally with you. I feel exactly the same way, Chris. Actually, as even still today, I will hold that as of right now, Rogue One is my favorite Star Wars film. Because I love that, like you said, Ryan, it encapsulates one story. We don't need more. Sure, you might want more, but it's not necessary. The little, and I should have actually already done this. Hold on, let me see if I got it. Ready? No, that's not that one. Here it is. Sorry. There we go. Okay, got the sound effect. Because we've already dropped some spoilers. Everyone watching, there's spoilers. If you haven't seen Rogue One,
there's a show called Andor coming out. Spoiler.
Yeah, there's a TV show. Sorry if you didn't know that. There's this. This is awkward. This just got really awkward. If you didn't know, but I guess so. What I wanted to say is, at the end, we get the cool thing about connecting it to New Hope. That was fun. Probably a little bit of fan service, but they did it in the way they did it. I really enjoyed that. It's just enough to go, oh, these things do happen in the same universe, like in the same world building. These two stories happened alongside each other. Oh, that's great. This really ties things together. But you don't need that to make Rogue One a really good movie. And I'm with you that it hurt so much at the end to watch how Cassian and Jyn, how their characters died. But it was like the best way they could have. Like that's how their stories needed to end. If they lived, or either one of them lived, even scarred later on emotionally, I don't think it would have been the same movie. Like that's how their characters needed to go. And so I'm with you very much that I watched these trailers. I was rewatching them right before this, and the first look kind of behind the scenes bit. And what I loved about how they're describing these characters and what you see is how dark this is. To me, it feels even more dark than Rogue One in the means of like 1984, a Logan's Run, Soylent Green. It's got this highly dystopian feel to it that really resonates with me. And I was noticing in the trailers again, that the well-placed use of shaky cam in the right moments really does, at least we've seen the trailer, reinforces the emotion that a person in that moment is having when they see like the Star Destroyer fly overhead or something to that effect. Like it makes you feel a certain set of things. And it's something that I love about Rogue One, about these types of stories, is that they play to our humanity. Like, I love the Space Wizards all day long. The Jedi stuff is freaking amazing. All that I absolutely adore. But there's something so raw and human about Rogue One and these stories, especially with Cassian, that I feel like as people we really connect to, and we can find how analogous it is to real life and things we're dealing with. I mean, I think all three of us could easily lay on top of. I mean, I wouldn't say this is an allegorical movie, but you could easily lay on top of a lot of things that are happening in our real life, real world, in our own government and other places into what's happening, what we're seeing in Andor. Like, it wouldn't be a stretch to say, oh, these two things are probably, an allegory for what's happening in the U.S. right now or other parts of the world. So I'm really excited about how that's gonna. I'm also not excited because it's going to make me feel some things I don't want to feel, damn it. But I'm really looking forward to that.
It's going to punish you, right? It's going to give you trauma. But that's what a good Star Wars story does, is that it traumatizes you.
It's going to be a lot of like, thank you, sir, may have another. Thank you, sir.
Right? Yes, break my heart some more. But I'm also looking forward to the tears that are going to be spilling from the trolls. I'm sure they're enraged to see there's going to be strong female characters.
Mm-hmm.
Cassian, of course, is not a white male, so I'm looking forward to seeing people gripe and complain and bitch, and it's gonna feed my dark heart so much.
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you, Chris. Like, I'm Jeff knows this. I'm a really big Star Trek fan. A bit of a show that I love is Strange New Worlds, and I'm also a follower of Melissa Navia online, who plays Ortegas. And if you know anything about what's going on with Melissa Navia, she's like fighting every fight. Jeff also knows this. I'm Hispanic, and I like seeing representation. It is a thing, especially like, I cannot say this enough. When you have that representation, it means a lot. It is the thing that I say in my house, especially when we saw Ortegas as the pilot of the Enterprise in Strange New Worlds, was, look, we made it. We made it to the future, and it's not often that we're featured. So that's always a thing that I like. I like seeing that level of representation. But bar none, I also like seeing really great talent that's being able to be utilized. And often talent is missed, not because I think there's this idea that, oh, we're forcing things in through like diversity hire. And it's like, no, we're actually acknowledging talent that's always been there. And if someone was a fan of like Y Tu Mama Tambien, I mean, Diego Luna is this amazing actor, and I was excited when he was in Rogue One. I'm super excited to see him in this series. But yeah, like his opposite, it looks like the antagonist of this show is a female. It's like I'm here for it. Like give me this show. I will also say that if people need to see that some of the traditional British actors, you can also see in the trailer, it is chock full of them. It is a veritable crown of actors recasting. Like, I mean, I want to say that half of the actors that I saw that are on the Empire that typically are being used because they have a British accent already. Thank you, Empire Strikes Back. They are almost all former guest stars or regulars on The Crown. So if you need those established actors, you're gonna get them. That's gonna be fine. But I like that. I like seeing that diversity, and I also like seeing really great talent, like Diego Luna. Like, gosh, that guy's great. I think it's gonna be a really good show because of that.
Yeah, I agree. I cannot wait. It was funny when the new trailer came out. I was like so blown away by it. Like, I didn't even acknowledge the fact that the release date got pushed back. And then all my content creator friends were messaging me or complaining on Twitter or in Discord going, now we have to rework our entire schedule. We were going to do the show. And I was like, wait, what? What's happening? Huh? And then I realized, oh, they pushed it back a month. But I don't care because, when it arrives, it's going to be amazing. And before we know it, it'll be over. I got into Obi-Wan Kenobi depression after the show finished. It was like when there was no more Obi-Wan. It was like, what do I do now? What do I do with my life? There's no more Star Wars. What am I doing?
I know this is gonna sound funny. I almost need more time between these series because I'm having the effect that you're having, and I almost kind of you talked about having the Return of the Jedi lunchbox. That, by the way, like that's like what I wish I had. I had a green broomstick handle that was my lightsaber, and I was totally that kid in The Last Jedi. By the way, the greatest ending. I loved that because I was that kid. But when there was that time between when we were growing up, and there was this big lull between the original trilogy, and I mean, of course, you had the Caravan of Courage. You had all of these little things that were in there, but
we don't talk.
You then got like this great news. Like I remember it was like 1997. It was like, oh, they're gonna do like the prequels, and I remember I could not be more excited. I almost enjoyed the wait. This is the thing I've talked about with Jeff too, Chris, which is I like that there's so much content, but I almost kind of wish that there was like a little bit of a bigger window, because I kind of like when this stuff settles with me for a while. Like I'm able to like think about it. Like I actually kind of like that there isn't a new Star Wars movie in the theaters right now. I don't know if it's I think it's just this property, because Marvel, it's fine. Like give me all the Marvel stuff. I'll take it in. That it feels like a comic book, but with Star Wars, it is like I'm depressed when it's over, and it's like hard when it's done, but I'm still like I kind of like the anticipation, I guess. Even having this out an extra month, I was kind of like, that's cool. Like that actually gets me ready to get ramped up for this show. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's it. That's interesting, because I never felt like there was a lull between the original trilogy and the prequels, because as soon as I was able to, I was of age, I bought the Timothy Zahn books. I kept reading those. The new Jedi Order books came out. I was into the I don't know if y'all remember the X-Wing TIE Fighter video game.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, the B-Wing expansion pack? Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. The Dark Trooper series. Like I was consuming new Star Wars stories the whole time. It was just there wasn't a movie, and when the movie came out, I distinctly remember being the only one that loved it out of my group of friends. But that was fine. I didn't care. But now I don't really need. I watch Star Wars every day anyway. There's not a lull for me anymore. I literally just watched Empire Strikes Back today while I was working.
Oh wow!
So I think that for me, I can digest Star Wars over and over and over again. I never get tired of it. New Star Wars, old Star Wars is all the same to me at this point. It's never been a better time to be a Star Wars fan or just a nerd in general.
I would second that. It really does feel like there's never been a better time for, especially like a lot of content like this. Like I'm excited. I'm excited about all this stuff. Like I will say it's killing me on the amount of streaming services I have to keep buying. But I'm really excited about the fact that I get to keep going, and it feels like, this is a way that I feel about it, but it's kind of like visiting friends, like friends that I really like. But I'm very careful, because I already am one of these people that it's like what you just said about Empire. I remember there was a time where I would just like have Empire running in the background. And I could like figure out the time of day by how many times I'd watched Empire. 4 times. Oh, okay, so it's midday now. But it is one of these things that Star Wars is a property that I'm also trying to like balance my intake of, because it's like, it's still this like, to me, like really, really special property that's like very much connected to my childhood, where it's like Star Trek, I was so accustomed to the episodic nature of it, the fact that every single week there was a new Star Trek Next Generation or Deep Space Nine or Voyager or Enterprise. And now, of course, there's all of these new shows and pieces of content that I was like kind of geared to like, oh, that's consumption. Marvel, that's consumption. Those were weekly comic books that I picked up. But yeah, Star Wars to me, I almost kind of liked the fact that we have this break, because I like that I can wind down off of Obi-Wan, and then kind of kick off this new show. I also kind of think that it's nice that these are also kind of similar eras, the dark times. You know what I mean? Like Obi-Wan and Andor are kind of existing in these similar worlds, of that time, post Republic and pre-Battle of Yavin. So I like. I don't know if that was planned, but I kind of like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you too on that one. The way that I've been finding that. Sorry, I was getting distracted by something on YouTube. But there's somebody commenting that was like, I tried to get rid of these comments, it wasn't working. Anyway, something what I've kind of noticed for me is a kind of a hybrid of what you both are saying is, I don't find I don't notice that I need as much of a gap between them, like you're describing, Ryan. Although I do like it. What I've been finding myself filling it with is so many books that have been coming out, comics and books like Shadow of the Sith is a good example. Like I just finished that recently. I'm reading Padawan right now. All the High Republic comics that'll start back up again, and I'm filling those gaps with that type of content, so that for me, it's actually when it comes back around to watching Andor. To your point, Chris, like somebody I know a couple weeks ago made a comment on TikTok someplace about like, oh, I got pushed out. I'm like, wait, oh, that's why people have been up in arms about things. I'm like, I had no idea. People are like, damn you for Andor. What? Okay. And then somebody finally actually says out loud, it got pushed back. Oh, that's why. Okay. I didn't really notice. Yeah. And it's not because I don't care, but I'm not thinking about it too much because I'm like, you know what? No worries. I know it's going to come out soon. I literally have a stack right there of like 9 comics I haven't read. And I've got the store just called me yesterday and it had delivery last week too. So I have like 14 more comics I got to go pick up. And I'm like, I am way behind on books. I'm getting up to them. But the great part about that is I always have like some other type of Star Wars story that I can consume. So when we do get around to watching Andor as an example, it's going to feel completely new to me. Like, okay, yeah, I may have seen the trailers, but the gap between Kenobi and it is going to feel like a chasm because I've been consuming so many other stories that are disparate, like Doc Aphra or the Obi-Wan comic book run that's happening and all that type of stuff. So I feel what you're saying a lot, Ryan. And I just happen to find the way that I've been finding to kind of bridge that gap is just by consuming the other content that is more episodic in its nature, not just the print books, but the comics specifically, trades and things like that.
Yeah. If you happen to be a Disney fan overall, which I do consider myself that type of fan, the content never stops. Like, there's She-Hulk coming, there's Andor.
Oh, yeah.
Dude.
And then so much other stuff, like random documentaries and stuff. So like, I'm being fed. I'm being well fed.
Yes.
And I'm a gluttonous nerd. I want more content.
That is a great phrase.
I like that. I like that.
You heard that coined here first. I know I'm really excited about She-Hulk, and I'm very excited about watching Sandman. My wife and I are just finishing up Westworld. The last episode of the current season comes out on Sunday, and this season of Westworld has been just like my brain is melted after every episode because I'm like, wait, what is happening? I was like, in the past I always did the dual timelines, and now it's like, what? Like I have no idea what's happening half of the time. And then I only started reading Neil Gaiman's Sandman like last year. I had heard about it for years, but I just never looked for it. And I have someplace on my shelf back here, I have a hardback version of like the first half of the books or half of the comic, whatever that were originally released. And I don't have the second half, but after reading that, my wife's like, I think I really want to watch the show. I'm like, okay, our 6.5-year-old has to be asleep because he cannot watch this. If it's anything related to this graphic novel, he can't. I'm like, and I'm just warning you, it's going to get bad. It's going to get intense. And she's like, how intense? I'm like, well, most of it's just going to be kind of spooky and scary, but there is a section that has a lot to do with murderers. And it's not the friendliest thing in the world. In the comic books, it was hard to read. I almost skipped over a good chunk of it because I'm like, yeah, I don't need to see this. I'm good, man. I got that. No, I'm no worries. I'm like, so, babe, just know that it's going to be intense. But she's like, all right, we still got to watch it, though. So, yeah, you're right, Chris. Like, there's so many, like, it's just nerd-type fodder out there for us right now. I don't want to beat this horse too much to death, but, like, it I don't know, Ryan, it kind of like gives me a different perspective on like, yeah, I can focus on all of this stuff. All of us can. So when Andor comes out, it's like, oh, wait, we have a new show? Fantastic.
Yeah, I kind of like mixing it up, but I like the anticipation. It kind of reminds me of those days where it was that little gap. Like I remember being so excited. And by the way, like Chris, I'll say this, like while I was it was hard watching episode 1. I know that there wasn't everybody walked out of that theater and was like, "This is the greatest movie ever." Although I do remember a guy behind me where I stood up after the theater, and he was still sitting down, and he said, "I think I just watched the greatest movie ever made." I'll never forget that. But I could make a claim that it's definitely the most cinematic of all of the prequel movies. Like it is the best film of the prequels. Like in my opinion, it is a solid film. But the thing that I'm really again excited about this series Andor is, we were kind of talking about like the era. This is like my favorite era. I love the Dark Times era. Those are my favorite comic books. Like even back when like the comic books were like coming out from like Dark Horse. Like I know there was always like really cool stuff, like New Republic stuff. I was of course a big video game fan, so I loved things like Shadows of the Empire, all that stuff. But I loved that time. That was the Dark Times. Like what that was gonna be like. And a thing that I got real big vibes from the trailer was, and I think Jeff, you were just talking about this, like that kind of like 70s era, like, what is it? There's all of these movies that came out that are like 3 Days of the Condor and The French Connection and The Conversation and, all of these great movies that were like all the President's Men, where you just felt like it was like a thriller. And I'm kind of excited about a Star Wars thriller where it feels like the tension is like super high and like following this person. I liked in the latest trailer how he says, he's like, "Oh, the way that you are able to just enter the Empire is you just walk on in. Like you're supposed to be there. Like you're supposed to be there." And even the stuff that Mon Mothma's saying, which by the way, like I love the fact that they're able to keep using all these actors because they're just hitting the right ages, like Jimmy Smits, like being able to pull all these actors, even if they were a blink of an eye in other shows or in deleted scenes from episode 3. Like I love the fact that they're able to reuse these actors in the same way that Ian McDiarmid was perfectly the right age to come back as Senator Palpatine. It's like perfect casting. But I love that it's like a thriller. I feel like it's time for Star Wars to really explore some of those different tropes, and a thriller series to me is like, yeah, let's do this.
I completely agree. There's actually, I think it was in the teaser, but I don't remember. There's a scene where Mon Mothma the actress is walking out of a party with a bunch of like Imperial senators and people in the Navy. And as she walks out, you could see that she had it shows her for enough to see that she had like a grin on her face, placating the people in the room. But then when she turns and starts walking out, and there's even some dialogue where she's like, basically, "I am afraid." Like you see the look on her face of like sheer terror as she's walking away from these people. To your point, Ryan, I love that because it reminds you that in a situation like these people are in, they're not just fighting the good fight and they're just, I got it. No, they're doing this because they know they need to do it, but that doesn't mean that they don't understand that there's a massive risk here, and these people around them are frightening individuals. Like they're, goose stepping, thigh high boot, sort of like Zeke Heil type people. Like you see that in the scenes with the two Imperial officers standing there drinking drinks at the same time. The one Grand Admiral sitting there in his white uniform with an all white background, so everything is just, and he's just, what did he play in Game of Thrones? What did that actor play? He was the
the maester. He was the maester that was
who
kicked
made
out.
the mountain into the creepy guy. Yeah, so he was that.
That's
actor.
right.
He is creepy.
Formerly from the Crown. All of these people are all from the Crown, which I was like, what the heck? It's like there's a run on British actors. They're like, are you British? You can be in the Empire. But yeah, sorry.
Where there's a shit ton of Imperial officers, they need all the British actors. Essentially, half of the UK was emptied for the show.
There you go.
Oh, absolutely. I feel like they were like, look, can you do the British act? Perfect. Yes, we need you. We are doing Spartacus rules. You are in the Empire. You have to have a British accent. If you're from an old Republic era, a la Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, you gotta have this accent, so bring it with you. But yeah, like I really like that, but I love the high tension. Like that's what I feel like when I was watching this show. Mandalorian felt like adventure and kind of almost fun, even though there were like tense moments, but it was like adventure, and that's like a fun Star Wars thing. But a thing that I loved about Empire, and this Empire is of course my favorite. I'm sorry, I'm a basic, as the kids would say. But Empire is my favorite, but it's because I love the tension. Like I love the tension in that movie. There is actually like a jump scare, which is rare in Star Wars. There's a jump scare where Luke's like Luke's like in over his head, and he's like kind of walking through that area. Like he's up on the fin and he's walking in the door. And it's like, woo, it's almost like he's going to a haunted house. And then it's just Vader doing the lightsaber drop and almost taking his head off, and the camera's shot from underneath, so Vader looks huge. Those are the moments that I like. I like these high tension moments, and man, that's what this Andor show looks like.
Yeah, I totally agree. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Chris.
No, it's funny you mentioned that, because I was thinking to myself, man, I remember when that scene that you're talking about was the only time I felt scared of Vader, and now there's all these other moments that we have where I'm deeply afraid of Vader. And isn't that funny?
Yeah. No, because I remember being really, when I was a kid, Empire was the one I didn't like. Like I hated watching Empire. Of course, like that also, it was on the same tape as Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock. Also a really hard movie to watch. So, you just like rewind it. It was all caught on HBO. And the thing though is that whole movie is about like increasing tension. Like even Yoda's kind of scary. And I'm saying this now, and it sounds like I'm like a child saying like, "Oh, I'm scared of a puppet." But I mean, like Luke even says to him, "I'm not afraid." And the guy who's going to be his teacher is like, yeah, you will be. Like, I'm going to scare the crap out of you. And even the scene in the cave, all of the lessons that Luke learns are the hardest way. Oh, yeah, I can't believe it. That's why you fail. Mm-hmm. These are hard-won lessons, but even the tension pays off. That's what you get when you hire the director who did The Big Chill. And that's kind of what I'd love to see from the Andor show, is that kind of high tension.
You mentioned that it was something I was thinking about as a good kind of way to reference what some of these scenes feel like they could turn into. Is several of the scenes that we see Stellan Skarsgård interacting with someone else and talking and being intense, or like switching gears a moment later to like, "Oh, friend, it's so good to see you." Every time I see that, what it reminds me of is I think it's in the second Hunger Games movie, when Katniss is about to go into the arena, or maybe it's the third one, about to go into the arena, and Lenny Kravitz's character comes up to her and she steps in, and the tube comes down, and then she doesn't move. And like she doesn't go up, and she's like, "Wait, what's happening?" He kind of looks at her, and then all of a sudden the two guards come in and beat the crap out of him and drag him out. And she's like, no, and then it sends her up at that moment. That's what I keep thinking about with Stellan in those moments. Like to your point, Ryan, about the intensity or like the suspense. I keep expecting that sort of thing, and I love that because it kind of makes you think that at any moment for these characters, Mon Mothma, whoever Stellan is playing, any of these people that are in the front or in the limelight that are also trying to fight this fight, this could happen to any of them at literally any moment. We know Mon Mothma is okay later on, and other characters are, but I don't know I shouldn't say really okay, but like we don't know yet that she hasn't been drug off someplace and beaten, and then she comes back and does it again. But we don't know. I don't know who Stellan's character is yet. I don't know what happens to him. Those things could happen at any moment to these characters, and I think that is what makes this. To your point, that's what makes the appeal for me of this show. It's highly dystopian. We know that it leads someplace that's going to help us, but we don't know how it gets there. And I really get the sense from watching the camera angles and the lighting, especially of these trailers, that this is not going to be an easy show to get through. Like, what happens to like, no character in these shows is going to walk away without massive emotional scarring and some trauma they've got to deal with. And I think that's what makes it real. That's what makes a story like this hit for people when they watch it, because you really can feel that. You walk away like, holy crap, like, even if all of it doesn't, at least one or two pieces of the story is going to hit with you, and it's going to relate to something you have dealt with, and you're going to identify with that. And, goes beyond, I don't want to say superficial because it's not superficial, but the the lack of middle-aged cisgendered white guys, straight white guys. Like, we're starting to get away more and more from that, and switching to more characters that are actually representative of what people really look like in a world, or in a galaxy far, far away. And they all have to deal with trauma, and they all have to deal with complexity. And I think that's amazing, because more and more people can relate to the characters they see on the screen in a variety of different ways, and they're real ways. Yeah, I am excited and also a little scared.
Yeah, I think I'm a little concerned. Star Wars has never been shy about the fact that it's based on several different genres. The Western, the space opera, all that kind of stuff. And Clone Wars is a good example of how Star Wars can take different genres and really make it work. Like the Zillo Beast was a great homage to like Godzilla, King Kong. But there have been times where they try to tell a very serious story. Like for me, an arc I had a very difficult time with was the Umbara arc.
Oh,
It's also probably our most controversial episode we've done, because I don't like it. And they were trying to tell a very serious story. I'm a history buff. I love World War II history and ancient civilization history, but there's a lot of war stories, and the details were really missing, and it was so distracting to me that I couldn't buy into the story. And it's very rare for me to have that happen to me in Star Wars. So for Andor, for me, if they're going to go full dark, full political intrigue, I really, really do want them to be very careful about all the details, about how the character development flows, how the story flows. Because if they go all in, and I do want them to go all in, I want them to be really considerate of all the details. And that's not traditionally been Star Wars' strength.
Yeah, and that's where I'm always kind of worried about these shows, because what that requires is someone to really like piece this story together from end to end. And that's what I've been worried about a lot of the streaming shows. And, I've talked about my problems with the Picard series. Like, that's been a really hard show for me to watch, especially because like all of that is a show that should have been my favorite show and ended up just like breaking my heart. And yeah, I said it. And the thing though that like the thing that I feel like is it comes down to the showrunner, it comes down to the writer's room, and it comes down to a character driven story. Like I know this is another like 70s thriller, which is also, it's like a weird thriller, but it's The Parallax View. And I was like, oh wow, like this could really be like, again, like I kept thinking of all the political thrillers that came out in the 70s because of the 60s, because of everything that happened in the 60s. Like there's this amazing amount of movies that comes out. And in fact, Star Wars tries to correct it. Star Wars comes out to get rid of the anti-hero. And but like Cassian's already kind of like a gray character. The way that Rogue One opens was always like a thing that I was like, oh wow, like that's a really unique way to introduce this character. And the fact that he's and the fact that he openly tells Jyn Erso like, hey, like you don't know the stuff that I've done to get to here. Like you don't know how bad what all of these things, and so I like that, but man, I don't like plot driven stories where it's like it's things happen because the script says for them to happen. Characters do things because the script says that they have to do those things, not because it makes sense for them to do those things. What you're saying about the details to me is like kind of critically important, because that's what then makes a story about political intrigue interesting. If not, then it's just like abject craziness. It's like you get Picard season 2, where I think they're talking about fascism, but somewhere along the road it's also talking about climate change, and I think we're also talking about mental health. It's but that's a weird triangle to try to like sync those points all together. 1984 does it pretty well. But otherwise, it's like it doesn't. They really need to do one of these things. I know this goes without saying, but it's like show don't tell. Like really make this a character driven story and really isolate your characters. Like if it's just a trifecta of like Cassian with some support from like Stellan Skarsgård, Mon Mothma. Maybe you got Jimmy Smits popping in there, a little bit too, to really kind of set the stage of the political intrigue. Like the people that are in the muck in like the ivory tower and in the trenches, like that's cool. Like I want to see that. But if you don't plan it out well, it could be a really messy show. And I will say that that's my only reservation. Is I'm like, man,
Yeah.
you got to like plan this out.
I mean, I have every confidence in the world it's going to be good, or at least I'm going to find something that I enjoy about it. And that's kind of my thing. Is I always come in with like zero expectations. The show doesn't owe me anything. I'm not going to be upset if a certain character doesn't show up. I'm not going to be upset if a certain thing doesn't happen. And that allows me to, even if I don't like something, that allows me to enjoy it. Even Picard season 2, there were moments that I loved. Like the Picard Q scenes were just.
Yeah, the Picard. Yeah, but it's like that. I'm sorry. I don't want to interrupt you because man, we could spend this whole show talking about Picard season 2.
Good, yeah.
Please go ahead, Chris.
But I don't ever get to talk about Star Trek. So, but like ultimately, I think it's going to be good. Is it going to like Obi-Wan Kenobi? The Obi-Wan Kenobi show blew me out of the water. I had no idea it was going to be that good, and I had no idea it would turn out to be some of my favorite Star Wars of all time. Not to say that I haven't loved Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett. I certainly have, and of course I love Bad Batch and Clone Wars too. But Obi-Wan Kenobi, that show was special to me, and so I don't know. Having Andor has a lot writing on it, in my opinion, and I'm sure I'm going to love it. Am I going to love it the same as a Clone Wars or a Bad Batch? I'm not sure yet. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I'm always just very excited. I think probably overly excited for some of these shows when they come out because I'm like, I just want more show. I don't really care. And when I see anybody online, trolls or whoever happens to be throwing shade at something before it even comes out, I'm like, dude, just stop. Like, I don't care. Like, it's going to be awesome. And if there's parts of it that aren't awesome, then there's parts of it that, aren't awesome. But I kind of like default, like you were saying, Chris, I kind of default to, I'm just excited for a new show to come out and a whole other story. And if there's stuff that we don't care for, okay, whatever. But we're getting people want stories. So we're getting stories. And I did a live stream on TikTok right before we started, just as like, hey, we're going live in a bit. And someone asked to join me for a minute or two. She was asking, she's like, I've actually never watched Star Wars. Where should I start? And I'm like, my recommendation is start with comic books. And she's like, wait, really? Why? I'm like, Ryan and I've talked about this before. I'm like, with movies and TV shows, I love them all to death, and they're awesome. One thing they do though is they take your imagination out of it. It's someone else's imagination, their take on the characters and how it looks, and it's entertaining and it's amazing. Whereas, print books, it's 100% your imagination. Like how I look at the character in my mind is going to be completely different than how the two of you look, and that's fine too. But comics are awesome because you get a little bit of both. You get that, you get an author's story, and you get enough of the artistry to give you some visual representation. But there's enough gap between these panels that you get to fill in a lot of that on your own. Like you get to think about these things on your own. So I was telling this person, like, start with a comic book because then you can just read one. And if you don't like it, that's fine. You don't have to like spend 2.5 hours watching a movie or whatever that you're like, this isn't my thing. Just read one. It's one story and you can enjoy it. And you can continue if you want. I think my point for all this is that I'm interested to see how I lost my point. Sorry, there was a reason I was bringing up the comic book stuff. I totally lost what I was going to say, but I want to see us. I want to see them doing more. I want to see more focus, like you were saying, Ryan, more focus on character-driven stories, like we see in comic books a lot of the times, that sometimes get lost in some of these TV shows just for the sake of making a TV show. And I don't want that to become a thing for Star Wars. I don't want them to just make shows or movies for the sake of doing it. Like, if you've got some story that is good to tell and you're interested and you're excited, not everyone's going to like it. That's fine. It's never, not everyone's ever going to like it, but do that. But if you're just doing this because you're like, we got to have a content schedule, that's probably the wrong decision. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Like, because I don't want to watch something you came up with, like, you know, a holiday special just because somebody told you needed to make, you know, not the Lego holiday special because that's awesome, but the original one.
The original.
Different story.
Yeah, I mean, that as Star Wars has already been subjected to that several times. The Ewok movies was a
Caravan of Courage. Yeah, Caravan of Courage was totally that.
And the Star Wars holiday special, that was a whole history in and of itself. That was what got George Lucas to be like, you know what, I am never going to give up control of Star Wars ever after that. And I believe TV Guide, if kids, there used to be a thing called TV Guide. You used to have to look up when your television shows were going to come on on paper. There was no internet, but TV Guide used to always have like a top 10 worst television history moments of all time, and the Star Wars holiday special was always like top 3, if not top 1. So
yeah. No, I mean, I agree. I like. It's funny though, to Chris, to your point. Like, I always keep a really open mind. Like, I was like mid okay with like how season 1 of Picard came out, and I was like, oh, you know what, I'm just gonna. And then I saw the trailers for season 2, and I was like, okay, cool. Like, let's do this. I always keep like an open mind when this stuff comes out. I will say they kind of like. They might be jumping the shark, or who knows, growing the beard, when they jumped right into their season 3 promo of like, we're bringing everybody back from the next generation. But I always keep an open mind to this stuff. But my hope is always that it starts with the story. And I always think about like, speaking of Star Trek, Star Trek going back on television was kind of a grab. At the time, Star Trek was turning, I think, like 20 years old, and they had just had The Voyage Home come out, and there was all this money, and the head of Paramount at the time was like, this is a jewel for us. We need to like be making tons of money. And they were like, we'll bring back Roddenberry. We'll come up with a show. And those first 2 seasons are rough. And then Michael Piller comes in as the season 3 showrunner and is like, we're telling stories. We're going to tell stories about people, and we're going to have them be the center of it. And then you get all of these amazing character-driven stories. You get these amazing stories that like make characters like Worf. Like, oh my gosh, like Worf becomes this multi-dimensional character, and it's just not about honor, but like all of this complexity of like being a Klingon, and like the toxicity of Klingons, and like the things that he has to balance. And that's what I mean by I want that out of all of my shows. Like, I know that there's a lot of like ranting and raving about the Rings of Power right now, but like I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan, and I know that they only have the access to the appendices from I think it's like appendices B from Return of the King. But it's like, hey, like I'm gonna give that show a fair shot. We'll see how it turns out. I like going into this stuff with no expectations, and instead just like I just want you to tell good stories. Like come with a story, and I'll show up every single week. And Strange New Worlds did that, and I was there. 100%. I'm bummed out that Strange New Worlds is done. Like, yeah, I'm like, bring that back.
Oh my God, yes. I'm not a big Star Trek fan.
Yeah, we'll see.
We've talked about that. I'm not a huge Star Trek fan, but oh my God, it's Strange New Worlds. I'm like, oh my God, I need more of this. I need more Anson Mount in my life. I do. I just absolutely do. That show was amazing. Well, look, with the last 6 minutes or so in our time, I thought it'd be kind of cool. We were talking about this earlier. Switch gears for just a second off of Andor, because we've talked about that. We're excited. It's coming soon-ish. There's rumors. Obi-Wan season 2. Brian and I have brought this up a couple of times. I don't know. Hot takes, not like. What do we think about? I don't know, Chris. What do you think? Should there even be a season 2? And if there is, like, what do you do with it?
Okay, I am never going to say no to more Obi-Wan Kenobi. However, I think the Obi-Wan versus Vader story is done. The Obi-Wan Kenobi story, as we know it now, is done. So if there's another show that happens to include Obi-Wan Kenobi and doing some shit, that's fine. I would love that because there's definitely more that Obi-Wan Kenobi by himself can do. What would that story be? I mean, it could be the journey of him learning his Force powers, or his Force Ghost powers. Uh, it could be him running into old loose ends. He runs into Quinlan. Who knows? I don't care. I would love it. I would prefer it if they frame it as just a different miniseries, just like how they framed the Obi-Wan Kenobi show as the rematch of the century between Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi. So that's what I would like to see. I would prefer not to see any more Vader versus Obi-Wan Kenobi if they do another season.
Agreed. 100% agree with that. Like we know what that is. We know where that's going. We know the final conclusion. Cool. Can we just move on from? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean I mentioned this before that for me the Obi-Wan Kenobi show is perfection. I have no criticisms of it. I was blown away. I can't believe they did what they did. I would really like a Star Wars show that doesn't include Order 66, though. That would be kind of nice. But they like to go back to it all the time. But Hayden Christensen had his moment. He finally was able to make Vader this true monster that I always knew he was. I mean, I read the comics, I read books. He's an awful person, but he did it better than anyone. And I'm just blown away and I'm so happy for him that he got that opportunity. And little Leia, what that little girl is going to have a great career. She landed that character. What an icon! I don't even know if she knew how much pressure she had to deliver on that character. Leia Organa is an icon, and she did it so well. Yeah. Carrie Fisher would be proud.
She crushed that role. Like the moment she came on screen and started even talking for a moment or two. Heck, before she even talked, the first thing that we see her do, we don't even see her do. Somebody else does. And you're like, oh, 100%. Like totally a Leia move. Like it was great to watch it. Like she said you'd like it or you'd laugh at her or whatever. Or you'd find it funny. And I'm like, oh my God. I totally see that as Leia when she was a kid. 100%. Like, you little scamp. Like, I don't know. That's exactly how it felt. And I'm like, this little girl portrayed what it meant to be that character so well. Like, so well.
I wouldn't mind a Reva show. And
that's to me is what is the best doorway. Is that and I think that's what these shows should do when they're built around the original characters, is they should introduce new characters and then we follow them.
We need new characters. I just want more new characters. I love me some Luke Skywalker. I love Boba Fett, all that stuff. I want to see different new Star Wars characters to fall in love with.
Yeah. There's such a huge galaxy and so many people with Force powers or not that were affected by all the things that happened in the dark times. We don't need to see more of the same people. Like great, but like I'll be honest, like I'm obviously excited about the Ahsoka show whenever that comes out. Like I am so excited about that. But I will also say that like it's going to be telling some of the same types of stories or continuing them that we've already kind of seen, and I'm gonna love it. I'm gonna enjoy it. But I'm also a little like in the back of my mind, a little like, cool, but what's the next new thing that we're going to see? Who's the next new character? Like, hell, can we go to the unknown regions and actually follow the Chiss and Thrawn when he's a kid? Like, that the new Timothy Zahn trilogy, like, can we get more of that, please? Because, holy hell, like, I want to see Aralani, like, literally all day long in live action or in animated. Like, I want that. Like, there's a whole plethora of species and races. I mean, the Grisk, holy shit. Like, there's a psychological thriller waiting to happen. Like waiting to happen. I want more of those things so much. Not that I don't want these other things at all, but I really want more of that. I want more of the stuff that we've never seen before. I think that's why I've been so attracted to the High Republic, because it's just all new. Everything about it is new. Like
all of it's new, yeah.
It touches on bits and pieces, but all the characters are brand new with new story arcs we've never encountered before. I'm like, I won't call it perfection, but it is near as perfection for me as I can get, because it's such like. Everyone's learning this for the first time. Nobody is, well, I read that 20 years ago when I was a teenager. No, you didn't. Everybody is on the same page here.
I got so burnt out on Star Wars books in the '90s. I didn't go back to them for the longest time, and I tried reading some of the newer Thrawn books, and they weren't bad, but I just wasn't captivated by them. And then I read High Republic books, and that sucked me all the way back into reading Star Wars books
Mhm.
again. Those books are so good, and I never would have thought in a million years that my favorite Star Wars villain is in a book, not a live
Oh,
action show. So, uh,
dude, yeah,
yeah,
they
and
are. The Nihil are
yeah,
brutal. Oh my god,
the
Martian
Nihil
Row
are
is just
awful.
melts my brain like every time how ruthless.
Marchion for the record,
Sorry,
not
Martian.
Marchion.
Sorry.
Sorry, I like that pronunciation a lot more, and it was so funny when I went to Celebration. I heard them like debate that. That was hilarious.
Oh,
But
somebody just
uh,
corrected me on one of my videos. Like, no, Charles Soule said it's Marchion Row. I'm like, dude, look, I'm not
the
gonna. I'm
authors disagree with each other about that.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't actually care. Like they each can say it differently. I'm like, I'm with you. I prefer Marchion Row. There's something that kind of flows better than Marchion. I don't know.
Yeah,
Marchion feels a little it feels, no offense to Stell and Geos, but I don't actually like Geos. I wish it was a slightly different print, like Geos or something. I don't know, something that was a little different than that, but same thing for Marchion. But yeah, like the not current Thrawn trilogy for Thrawn, but the one right before that. The middle book I read all of them, or I did the audio version of all three of them, but the middle book I
mhm.
just skip every time. If I'm gonna re-listen to the trilogy, I skip the middle because the Vader stuff is just, it's fine, but I don't care. I honestly, I'm like, at this point I'm like, look, dude, I know,
You don't want a buddy cop Thrawn Vader show
but
because
they,
that's
like
money.
as much
That's
as I
money.
as much as I would
Wait,
like
see
that, but
this.
Vader has like no personality in it. He's just do what I want every time. Like, dude, oh god, dude, there's got
Kind
to
of how
be a
he
give
is
and
though.
take
I
here,
mean,
dude. And he's
See,
like,
there
no,
is
just
a
do what I
good buddy
want. Like,
show. There's a good buddy show, and it's an existing character, but it's a new take. And I keep bringing this up, and
okay,
it's
it's
a
true.
great opportunity to bring him back. Is a serious Binks that we keep. We have to bring back a serious Binks that really we saw Jar Jar, and he was like an immature Binks, and now he's like a lawyer Binks
Dude,
or some type
is
of
Law and Order Binks.
yeah,
Or,
Law and Order
Order
Binks,
dude,
serious Binks,
oh, I'm thinking like film
and
noir,
he's like
detective
yeah,
Binks, film noir
Detective
style.
Binks, and again, like I thought that the Obi-Wan, the thing that was the misstep in Episode 2 was that Obi-Wan had a really cool mystery to solve, and that should have been like played up even better, like being a detective, like that's really cool, like Obi-Wan's really smart, and him solving a mystery. That's if there's a season 2 story that isn't shenanigans but actual fun, like something that would be like, let's watch this. It's Obi-Wan solving a mystery. And all I thought is, well, if you're going to do that, like who to pair him off with? And it's like, gotta get that Binks. Gotta get Binks back in the show. And I'm telling you,
Binks.
gotta
There's
get,
There's a hashtag.
like for the way that Hayden Christensen was able to reclaim that like was able to shove off a decade worth of the crap that he had to deal with and be like, yeah, like he got that moment. Give Ahmed Best like a pitch right over the plate and be like, hey man, like you remember Captain Tarples? That dude's pretty serious. Boss Nass, he's pretty serious. There's all those other guys that were with Boss Nass. Those all guys look serious. We're gonna do serious Binks, and you're gonna be like a straight man to Obi-Wan. Who's a crazy guy living in the desert, and I'm telling you, it's a show. I'm giving that idea to Disney. Everyone would tune in for that. I would tune in for it. Serious Binks. Yeah.
I stand Jar Jar Binks more than anybody I know. I love that character. I don't think he's a comedy character because he's funny. I think he's a comedy character because he's a chaos god, and everything
Yes.
around him just falls apart. But
Chaotic good.
chaotic good, extremely chaotic though. But if Obi-Wan Kenobi is going to have a story where he's going to be a detective, I think the perfect partner for him, and also foil for him, quite frankly, would be Quillen Voss. Give me that like tactile Jedi Force stuff, and
I like
you know
that. I like that.
he unlocks the clues and gives Obi-Wan a bunch of shit. It gives Obi-Wan Kenobi an opportunity to be sarcastic back to him, which we didn't get a lot
Yes.
of in the show because
Yeah.
he was Sadawan. But nonetheless, I would love that.
We started.
Yeah, like I like Obi-Wan when he's kind of like a playful scamp. like in Alec Guinness style, and he's like hello there kind of like all of that like comes out of that like twinkle in Alec Guinness's eye. You know what I mean? Like that's the kind of stuff that I'm like, let Ewan McGregor do that now. Let him do his version of that scamp. And then give him good people to play against. I'm cool with Quinlan. I think that would be great. I just really want to see like a serious version of Binks and bring it in. Like really, like I will show up for that. Everyone will show up for that. It's gonna be like, oh yeah, like did you hear? Like or that Jar Jar is some type of secret enemy. There's a lot of different ways that you could go with that. Like so many different ways. I'm calling it out that this is going to be a missed opportunity if they don't take advantage of it. Like, go for it.
Okay, so I was gonna go a different direction with the sort of buddy cop, like a darker version of that. I want to see like Chili Afra, Dr. Afra, and Trip Zero and DT, because that combination, like, here's your funny, chaotic, hyper chaotic archaeologist who you have no idea what she's gonna do. Oh, and you have your complete murder droids who follow her, who are literally the murder version of C-3PO. Like, I think version. God, like gratuitous murder, because you know what, and super nice about it, like super friendly. Like, oh, when do I get to murder and peel someone's skin off? What? Your random statement. Like, there we go. There's like the dark version of our buddy cop comedy.
I'm telling you, you have such a great opportunity for a Jack Lemmon, Walter Matthau type pairing. You already have like Liam Neeson, who's just going to be hanging out as a ghost. It's like there is some really good work that can be done. Star Wars should lean into it. Like, really do something different.
Just go back to
we were
Benny
talking
Hill
about things.
Bit. Let's pull some Benny Hill references in here.
I'm telling you, I'm not. I don't feel I'm wrong on this. I feel like go different. Like, really go for it. I don't need shadows of things that I've seen before. Shadows of the Empire. I do want a Shadows of the Empire show, but I do want like something new and different. And if you are gonna use a character from the past, put a spin on it. I like that there wasn't like Boba Fett wasn't what we expected. Great. Like, do something different with those characters. As long as it fits within the storyline of their development, go for it. If you're not going to give us something new, then give us a new version of something we've seen. That's my thought.
I love that.
Right cool. On. Well, listen, this has been fantastic. Chris, dude, it has been stellar having you here, man. I'm so glad you can make it.
Yeah, I'm so glad to talk with you guys. I love talking with nerdy people, talking about nerdy shit. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Believe me, we will definitely have you back and do a rabbit holes that are like a whole non-Star Wars night. We'll just pick any other random genre, from Tolkien to Star Trek to gaming.
We can do Picard season 2. Like, I'm not joking around. I can talk about the highs and the lows. See? Like all of that John Delancey and having him back.
See, I got all that from you, Ryan, and I was like, okay, I'm just not going to watch this now because
but see, it's hard. Like, I can't. It's a hard season to watch. Like, and I'm
I would still watch it.
Okay, I'll still watch it.
There's some good performances. The actors did their best with what they were supposed to do according to the script, and I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, I'll watch it. Yeah. I will watch it for you both.
Choices were made.
Choices were made. I like that. They did make them, and they did happen. But I'll tell you what, like, is season 3 coming out? And am I going to watch it? 100%.
100%.
Worf looks, Worf looks amazing. I'm there for Commodore Geordie LaForge. I saw that Worf's the captain, but somehow not captain of a ship, probably because of that thing that happened on Deep Space Nine. Like, I can't wait for it. So yeah, Chris, if you ever want to come in, we've done what the Kessel chat was one evening, the warp plasma chat. So if you want, it would be great.
I've got the sound effects lined up for it. We're good. I got the 410 torpedoes. I got everything. We're set.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm here for it. I love Star Trek a lot. I'm a huge sci-fi fantasy nerd in general. There's that a lot. It's just, if I don't know about it, just because I haven't gotten to it yet. Because there's so much stuff now.
There's so much stuff. Nerd content is like taking over everywhere, and it's taking over.
With one exception, Wheel of Time. I read the first 10 books, which I guess is only 50% of the series, and I couldn't do it anymore. I tried watching the show, and I will say that if you liked Wheel of Time, the books, you probably will like the show. wasn't into the show myself.
I've never read the books. I've been told about them for years, but I just never thought about it. So watching the show from is like, oh, cool, new fantasy. But I'm with you that it had a very the same sort of vibe I get from a lot of Amazon, or I have got from other Amazon attempts at fantasy, where it's like something about how Amazon sometimes, for some reason, their content gets filmed feels campy, or feels like it's not enough. Like I don't think it's Amazon, but it was
no, the Amazon production, like I'm worried. That's my thing where I'm worried about like Rings of Power. Like Rings of Power looks cinematic. Like Numenor looks pretty
Have you seen the latest like teaser trailer with Galadriel discovering Sauron's symbol?
It looks cool. It looks like they put a lot more money into this show.
Yes, like because like a thing that I always get on like fantasy shows that looks fake to me, and I know that they talked about this in the Lord of the Rings, like DVD content of DVDs, was when chainmail doesn't look good. Like when chainmail looks bad, and these shows, the chainmail looks really good. Like everything looks right. But I will say I saw that weird thing that Entertainment Weekly, which I was like, Entertainment Weekly still around? Entertainment Weekly filmed a like opening thing with them where they like had all of the characters turn and look, and then they have them appear on the left side of the screen and on the right side of the screen. And my wife and I were watching it, and our first thought together was, this looks like the opening to The Young and the Restless. Oh, like someone didn't catch that. Like and then someone put The Young and the Restless music over the top as the faces are appearing on. And I was like, this is like peak 1986. Like no one caught this. No one thought like I feel like someone it felt so much like when I was in school, I had to take a picture where I was like this. And then it was overlaid with me like this. And it was two pictures of me together. And that's what this Rings of Power thing looks like. And I was like, I don't blame you, Amazon, but someone over at Entertainment Weekly, it was like their last day. And they were like, I know what I'm going to do.
You were just talking about how you want different kind of stories. Do you not want As the Middle Earth Turns?
Exactly. I mean, and that is exactly... and by the way, like we can end it right there. Like As the Middle Earth Turns, like that like
there's
takes
our next
it.
show. There's our next show. Yeah. Forget Star Wars for an episode. We're doing As the Middle Earth Turns. And on that note. Oh my god. Awesome, dude. Chris, thank you again for being here, buddy. This is fantastic. You're welcome back anytime you'd like to for Star Wars shenanigans or whatever the hell rabbit hole we go down. It'll be fine. Catch everyone watching on the replay or live. Thank you for being here. Catch us every week at 9 p.m. Pacific time. And yeah, we'll see y'all a little bit later.
Yeah, thanks for watching, y'all, and thanks for having me, guys. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right. Cheers, everyone.
Thanks so much, Chris. Bye, everybody.